many that we have thrown at it. I think I've got about 15 or 16 listed here on the slide. The only reason I have that few is that I ran out of space. So this is what I mean by interoperability, the fact that you can have multiple sensors from multiple companies all working together at the same time. And for a lot of practices, that's somewhat important. So we're going to switch gears a little bit here and talk a little bit about the infrastructure. My friend Sally McKenzie really feels that offices are probably underspending for the most part when it comes to their technology purchases. Ideally, you're going to be spending around 5% per year of your net on technology. Most offices don't do that. They spend a lot in 1 year and do everything they can for the next 4 or 5 years to not spend a penny. But if you really plan it out properly, if you're updating your hardware and software, if you're getting proper training, you probably will end up spending a fair chunk of your income on that. So what about putting computers in the operatories, which I think is a critical component? A lot of offices that I work with say, well, we don't really have room in our operatories for computers. And yeah, if you've got a big honking computer like this, that is absolutely true. You're probably not going to have space for something like that. But certainly if you wanted to go with something smaller, there's no reason that you can't fit that into an operatory. A lot of companies have come up with what they call these small mini towers. The ones that we are currently recommending for most practices are ones that are called small form factors. I like to call this a toaster size one. This is from a company called Shuttle. We typically get our computers from Dell. And Dell's come in 4 different sizes. You've got the small mini tower, the desktop, the small form factor, the ultra small form factor. This just shows you the size of the computer next to a standard 7-inch monitor. These are small, and if you really don't have room for something like this, there's probably something wrong. The other thing that we're seeing some interest with in the IT world, but not as much with dental right now, are these integrated solutions, where basically you're looking at the entire computer. You've got a wireless keyboard and mouse. Everything's built into the side of the monitor. It eliminates all of the issues we typically have to deal with running cables. This is just showing you another one. This is from Sony, I believe. This is one from Dell called the XPS-1, but it's the same type of concept. Everything's kind of built there into the side, where you've got your USB ports and the CD-ROM drives. All of that's right there for the taking. This is something I saw that was at ADA last year. I thought it was really kind of cool. You can probably see that little webcam that's sitting on top of the monitor. What's nice about what that does is that on the patient mirror, there's a little reflective surface, and by moving that reflective surface around, you can actually have like a pointer on the screen of the monitor. I like the concept. I believe it was priced really high. It was something like $995. It was designed more for people with disabilities, so it's kind of hard to recommend something like that for $995. But I like the technology. In the operatories, a question that we get a lot is how do we keep the keyboards clean? Most offices are using Saran Wrap. One that I saw at the Greater New York meeting recently is this one called Touch Free. It's a glass keyboard. You can wipe it down. Really cool technology. Price is still up there as well. You're looking at about $350 to $400 per keyboard, and that's really expensive for a lot of practices. With some of these all-in-one systems, are there some limitations? Yes, absolutely. You're going to find that you can't really upgrade them at all. And when you buy them, that's pretty much it. If you wanted to add, say, a dual monitor capability or higher-end video card, you're probably out of luck with that. If you bought it with a CD-ROM drive and then decided you really wanted to have a DVD drive instead, again, you're probably out of luck. What are my current recommendations? My company, Dental Technology Consultants, we configure computers for people pretty much on a daily basis. Basically right now, Intel, the company that makes the processors, has decided that the speed of the processor is not confusing enough for consumers. So they changed the numbering system. You've got these 6 series and 7 series and Core 2s and quad cores. What I'm currently recommending right now is we use Dell for almost all of our installations because they can provide on-site support. A good 85% of the offices I work with are out of state, so we absolutely have to have that level of support from a hardware company. So Core 2 Duo would be the processor. Currently 3 gigs of RAM is what we're recommending. It's kind of hard to find a computer nowadays that has something smaller than a 160 gigabyte hard drive. But since most offices will have a dedicated server, you really don't need a large hard drive on the computer. DVD or CD rewritable drives, Windows XP Professional, dual display video cards for the operatories, and even For non-operatories, we're finding a lot of people in their private office who want to be able to have two or three monitors connected. We would always recommend getting a warranty for as long as you're going to own the computer, which is typically 3 to 4 years. It's not that the computer is going to die after 3 years and 1 day, but you're going to find that the software that you're using has more and more advanced needs, and what used to work great all of a sudden doesn't work so great, and it's just because of that. So if you budget for the fact that you'll probably be replacing things in 3 or 4 years, you won't be completely shocked. And you notice my little asterisk there. That's as of today, subject to change by tomorrow. Do not hold me to any of these specs. It is a moving target, and I would never want to be held to any of this. But we've been recommending these specs for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks or so. A question that we get from a lot of people is what about the operating system? We are just now starting to configure computers without what's called an XP downgrade. Ever since Windows 7 came out in October, we've done what's called an XP downgrade. We load XP on the computer. It ships with the Windows 7 disk, so you can upgrade at any point down the road. And we are getting to the point where we have not found any dental application that won't work properly on Windows 7. So that is certainly something that we are going to be recommending for all of our users going forward. The one thing that we are not recommending, I guess I should have a big X through this, do not get a 64-bit operating system. There are no dental applications that I'm aware of, whether it is sensors or practice management software, image software, that are officially supporting 64-bit. So stay away from that for now. That will hopefully change in the next 6 to 9 months, but it's anyone's guess. What about a server? What are the things that make a server unique? Besides the fact that it happens to be a fairly large box that has a lot of fans on it, and you're not quite sure where you're going to put it in the office. There's a number of things that make a server unique. Typically, they're going to have a processor designed for multitasking. We would normally put at least 4 gigs of RAM in there. We'd always recommend what's called a RAID array. RAID does not mean bug spray. It means redundant array of either inexpensive disks or independent disks, depends who you ask. It basically means mirroring. You've got 2 hard drives in there. If one hard drive fails, the other one takes over. We are currently recommending 500 gigs. It's very rare to find an office that's even close to 500 gigs of data, but why take the chance? The cost to go from, say, 250 to 500 is minuscule. It's less than the cost of a decent meal. So go for the larger hard drives. We are seeing that a number of dental applications are currently not working with Server 2008. So we're still doing 2003, but I expect that to change in the next few months as well. So keep an eye out for that. If you are really concerned about the server going down, you can get a redundant power supply so that if the power supply blows, you're going to have another one that's going to take over. We get all of our servers from Dell with a 4-hour contract. By contract, Dell has to be there within 4 hours to replace the part, and that gives us a lot of peace of mind and the end users as well. What about laptops? Well, I've gone ahead and listed what I consider to be all the advantages of laptops in the operatory, right there in black. Obviously, I'm being a little bit facetious here. I'm not a huge fan of laptops. Do I think that there are some disadvantages? Absolutely. If you can find something with the same speed as a desktop and same power as a desktop, it's certainly going to cost you more than the desktop would. And that's assuming you can do that. In most cases, a laptop just will not have the same power as a desktop system. They're going to have smaller screens. They're going to have lower screen resolution. They're pretty easy to knock over off a countertop if you're not careful. And for a laptop that you're going to use in an operatory, because of the need for power, it's going to need to be plugged in. Because of the fact that large images don't really do well with a wireless network, you're going to want to have it plugged into with an Ethernet cable. So really, how mobile is it? You've got to keep unplugging it and moving it from operatory to operatory. It's just a major schlep. There is a class of laptops called tablet PCs. Tablet PCs are basically palms on steroids. They're using what's called digital ink. They all can do handwriting recognition, unless you're a dentist, because most of us have illegible handwriting. Some of them will have voice recognition, and they almost all have some type of wireless networking built into them as well. There's 2 types of tablet PCs out there. Most dentists, when they're looking at tablets, they think they're going to want a slate. The problem with the slate is what you see is what you get. This is the entire computer, really easy to move from room to room. But a lot of offices are going to want to enter text with the keyboard. So now you're going to need an external USB keyboard. Some of them want to use an external mouse as well. So now you've got a tablet and a keyboard and a mouse that you need to move from room to room. That's not so easy. So what we typically recommend for most offices is to get a convertible tablet. And a convertible tablet looks a lot like a laptop. The key area is right where that hinge of the screen with the keyboard. And you can see here, you can take that screen, you can turn it around 180 degrees so it's pointing backwards, fold it now down on top of the keyboard, and you have the slate design. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You can use it as a laptop, you can use it as a tablet, and we certainly would recommend something like that. And what's nice with them is that you can write anywhere on them. You can certainly mark up a chart, for example, or anything like